Hey, what's up, everybody? Eric here on this lovely, what day is today? Monday afternoon. Monday afternoon in Philadelphia. Not sure what time it is where you are, but I would love to hear where you are and what time it is where you are. So I'm in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, USA, and it is 2 minutes after 2 o'clock. So I can see a bunch of you joining in. It's great to see you all. I'm home. But you already know from a few posts that I'm home, and I'm really settling in. I just took a quick shower and shaved and put on my fancy face lotion and my Versace Dreamer cologne. I had a little haircut the other day, but tomorrow I'm having a big haircut. Ooh, surprise. Let's see, we got 7 p.m. in the UK, noon in Las Lunas, New Mexico, 8 p.m. in France. Servus, Deutschland. Juve, Forza Juve! Hello, hello, hello. I got a fresh cup of hazelnut coffee in my one-of-a-kind Rune mug. I know I've been threatening to make Rune mugs for some time, and it's still high on my list, and I hope to achieve it. But they're so expensive to manufacture that I could make them tomorrow, but they'd be so expensive. What would the point be? I don't want to be charging $25 for a coffee mug. So if someone has a connection or has a lead on coffee mugs that would be reasonably priced, let's say I wanted to make 50. This is my goal, 50 coffee mugs. If you want to take it upon yourself to see where I can get 50 coffee mugs, and they must be under $9 to print each, my cost. Okay? You can make them tomorrow. You can go to vistaprint.com and you can get a mug for $15. It's a piece of cake. But can you get it cheap? Anyway, I'm already off topic. Here I am sipping on a hazelnut coffee, black, of course. 11 a.m. on the West Coast in Mexico. Viva Mexico! We have New Mexico. Do we have Old Mexico? We have the original Mexico. But everybody's joining in. Perhaps, you know what? It's on my list, but I have so many things in the list that it's just not happening yet. So I have some new merch items. I'm going to show you one new merch item today. Dog's Day. I don't know what that means. Actually, you know what? I take that back. I am not going to show you one new merch item because I already packed it away. So tomorrow, you'll see a new merch item. Lots of news. As I alluded to yesterday, let's see. South American tour is canceled. We all know this. This is why I'm home, and this is why I'm relaxing. This is why I'm enjoying myself. This is why I was at Mama Dredzen's house yesterday. You know what we did? We relaxed. We watched some TV. We ate some food. We chit-chatted. I got a little cuddle with Rose, the kitty cat. I had a real nice time. I was compelled to make my inspirational Patreon post with Santana. What a great show. But you can read about that. That was pretty cool, though. And actually, as I was just preparing for this live, I hopped in the shower. I had Santana's Abraxas cranking in the background. Oye, como va? Melingo, baro, baro, da. Yeah. So today's theme, before I get too off track and excited, yes, we got the sign and we have the new speaker, the Beethoven's speaker here, showing that it's on air. I bought this thing, and my favorite piece is I wanted to do this. I realize now it's backwards. This is why the sign is correct, because I printed that sign backwards. So maybe if I turn it around. It's supposed to say on air, but it's still cool. Once we switch to video style, eventually down the line, that will be the correct way. That will be the correct way. But thank you, Eugene. Yeah, it was no kidding. Well, I agree with you, Julie, how much a live show can change your perception. I think this happens with Combi Christ all the time. If you watch Combi Christ videos on YouTube and go see Combi Christ now, it's not even remotely close. But Santana, as I mentioned, this is no surprise. Of course, Carlos Santana is a legend. He's a rock legend, a living legend. This is not news. This is not something I discovered last night. This is something long cemented. And I knew that I like Santana. I've purchased their CDs. I have some of their LPs in vinyl. And I knew they would play the hits. So it wasn't some big shock thing. But wow, what the shocker was is they were way better than I could have imagined. They were powerful. They were musical. They were charming. They were highly entertaining. They were motivating. They were inspirational. Hence my inspirational post. Carlos Santana. Wow, the real deal. And the drummer, Cindy Blackman, and our Patreon family member and friend, Angela, pointed out that Cindy Blackman, however you pronounce it, the drummer of Santana, is the wife of Carlos Santana. How cool is that? How cool is that? To me, very cool. As I said, I recognize her from playing her work in the Lenny Kravitz band. Of course, she came out in that band and was outstanding. I mean, you watch a Lenny Kravitz video when she was in the band, she draws your attention in. What a great player, what a hard hitter, what a great look she had. And nothing was different in Santana. So the news that they're married, super cool. Super cool. But welcome everybody. It's going by so fast. I'm not seeing everybody's name, so forgive me if I didn't shout you out individually. But welcome to one and all. So, one note before we begin the live Q&A. I have the computer next to the phone, as I always do, and I'll be reading and answering all of your questions. I am home. There is one side note. My apartment is currently under construction. There's a bunch of changes happening. The washer and dryer moved from the main floor down into the basement. The bathroom is being redone. It looks beautiful. However, my landlord, or our landlord, my roommate and I, might be paying a visit this afternoon. I'm hoping it doesn't intersect with this live. So just in case all of a sudden you hear me start talking to a guy about the apartment, that's what happened. But hopefully that won't happen, but a quick disclaimer in case it does. So without further ado, I want to once again welcome everyone in the Rune Army around the world, in America, in Europe, in the UK, in Russia, wherever you may be, South America, Latin America. Welcome. It's great to see you all, and I'm so excited to have this free time and back in the groove. Lots of content. I have a pipeline of content I'm going to be giving you, and I'm sure some of you noticed I haven't even gotten to the post. It's actually a two-part post about some acting that I did in New York. It's some really funny stuff, and I'm excited to tell you, but that's going to be coming in the upcoming days. For now, let's keep it topical. Let's keep it relevant, and let's get right down to our Q&A session. Let me load up the post, and we are going to go in order. I'm going to attempt to give you my insights to your questions. I do see Estonia just came on. I see Pennsylvania. I see Mexico. I see Bavaria. And I see my favorite Arizonian mom. Hi, Misty. Misty, I'd like to send some love out to your mom. And I know you guys are fighting to get everything together. And I just want to send some love to you and your mom in Arizona. Maybe she's watching. So, here we go. You know what? Everybody's mom. Everybody's mom. I'm sending love. Some watching. We have a couple mother-daughters watching. I don't know if Oh, she says hi. Oh, thank you. It's very nice that you're able to watch. To all the moms out there. My mom might be watching. I know in Bavaria, Leah and her mother are watching. So, question number 1 comes from Rune Army number 1. The question is, after such a long tour, what has been the best thing so far about coming home, apart from sleeping in your own bed? It's a great question. And there's been a number of things. One, sleeping in my own bed is definitely great. Before this tour, I actually got a new bed. I was gifted a new bed. Not necessarily gifted. I got a new bed. And I forgot how nice it was until the other day. Of course, to see my mother yesterday was very special. And we had a really nice time. And I had some great food. You know, she didn't make it for me, but I had some of her peach brown Betty, close to a peach cobbler. And she made some chili, which was very good. Not spicy enough for my taste. I added some Texas Pete. But I did have a lovely visit with Mom. It was my father's birthday just a couple days ago on the 22nd. And we got to spend some time together, which was also nice. We got to chat, and I got to tell him some of the things about tour. So both of those things were particularly meaningful for me, just to, you know, keep my parents informed. I mean, we do speak when I'm on the road. I text with my mom often, and my dad and I WhatsApp, and I send them pictures of whatever. You know, I like to send them a picture of Mary Luna. It's always cool to be playing in front of that many people. I send them some pictures from my days off often, whether I'm in Vienna or Malta or Bruges. I love to share the photos with my parents. I made a comment to my mom yesterday. There's one thing about Philadelphia, New Jersey that touched me yesterday, and it's the sound of the cicadas or the locusts, and it's a very common thing in this area. It's I don't know what you call it, a chirp, or it's just a chorus of these bugs. And I'm not a big bug guy, but it's just a sound I remember from my childhood. And I had the windows down in my car, and I could hear it from the trees. And as I was walking through Philadelphia yesterday, and it just, I don't know, there's just something about it in late summer, in August, when I hear the cicadas, it just gave me a chill, and that was cool. So those are some things about home. I have yet to see my grandma. I'm hoping to remedy that in the next day or so. So that's also very important to me. Those are the things I try to do as soon as I get home. So thank you for that question. And as a second question, as you know, one of my favorite parts of the Combi Christ show was your singing of the song War Pigs, and how did that come about? So most of you know, just going to give you a quick background if you haven't seen the show. In the encore of the Combi Christ performance, our closer is the title track of the new album, One Fire. And in that song, we actually do a breakdown, and we go into the song War Pigs by Black Sabbath, I love it, of course, because I'm singing, but I just think it's cool. Even if I wasn't singing, I think it's cool. I'm a lifelong Black Sabbath fan. We had one day of rehearsal for the European tour, one day, held in Dortmund, and we had a studio we rented. It was so expensive. It was $450 to rent this, 450 euros for one day, which I thought was excessive, but we desperately needed it. Now, it turns out the room was awesome. It was 2 levels, and on the bottom was an empty room that we set up all the gear, and on the top was a shower and a washer and dryer and a nice big table and couches, and everyone was able to pack their bags, go through their gear, and it was really important for the band. I don't like that we only rehearse one day. It's a little risky, but this time it worked. Plus, we had just come off of the U.S. tour, and we're already well rehearsed. So we hadn't played One Fire yet. We wanted to, so we set up and we started rehearsing, and we were just messing around. And Dane and I, as we do in sound check often, I just start playing riffs, or he plays a drum beat of some classic rock song. We tend to do a Metallica song, Sad But True, just when Greg, our sound man, who many of you know, can I hear guitar for the sound check? I'll play the riff of Sad But True, and Dane will kick in. And I don't know how it got to Black Sabbath. I basically said this part of One Fire has the same progression as War Pigs, and we just did it messing around. I had a microphone, and I just sang it, and Andy was like, that's cool, and he kind of shouted back, and Dane knew the song, and we just started jamming it. It was kind of a joke. I said, we should do this, and it's kind of out of character for Combi Christ to do something like this, but me and Andy and Dane were in sync, and it just happened. And I said, are we really going to go for this? And we all kind of scratched our head, because the first show was Grass Pop, a big festival. We're going to play to 10, 15,000 people. Do we want to risk this in front of a festival crowd? And I wanted to do it. Not just because I'm singing, because I thought it was cool, but yes, because I was singing. So we said yeah. And Andy said yeah, and I said yeah. And Dane and Greg said, all right, let's go for it. And we did at Grass Pop, and it kicked ass. We did it again at Hellfest, and now it's a staple of the set, or at least was for that tour. I would assume we'll probably continue it in Australia and Russia, but we'll see. So that's how it came about. Thank you for that question, and thanks everybody that appreciates that song. Okay, let's move on. Missy, my dear friend Missy, has a question, and she says, what do you do when you're put in a situation when either a fan, government official, or anyone tries to communicate you, but you just don't understand their language? She says, if I was on a tour, it's something I'd be terrified of. Well, as I've said in the past, it's not about language, it's about communication. So, hand signals, body language, smiling helps. Obviously, we know I'm a pretty experienced traveler, and I do face this from time to time, and you have to just break it down into its simplest elements. Really, a hand signal, airplane, Flughafen. It helps if you know some words. I attempt to know at least a couple words in whatever country I'm going to. For me, again, this is you've heard me say this, thank you, obviously, or cheers are my ones I like to say. I often buy guidebooks. In fact, I love travel guidebooks. Even if I'm in a place one day, I'll buy the book. 15, 20 bucks, I don't care. It's worth it. I bought like 5 this tour. I bought a German phrase book, my 4th one. I bought a book for Bruges. I bought Lonely Planet for Malta. I bought Vienna, the other travel series, Frommers, I believe. And you always have essential language at your fingertips. When it really doesn't work and they're aggressive, it's happened one time in Russia. This guy at the border was trying to talk to me and it just wasn't happening. You just back up. Be cool. Be non-confrontational. Don't get angry. Just play it cool. So eventually, hopefully, someone comes along that can communicate. But be calm, be cool, and do your best. That's what I do. Thank you for your question, Missy. Let's move on. Angela. Hi, Angela. I think I saw your name fly by there. She says, welcome back. Thank you. It's great to be back. Have you or do you plan on composing songs on the piano? Great question. The answer is yes and yes. I actually have written one song purely on the piano. It's a song I'm actually very proud of. It's called Sunny Day. I've sung it a few times in Instagram Lives. Sometimes I play it on guitar. Sometimes I play it on piano. It's kind of one of the 2 songs I know on piano. 3 songs. I know Home Sweet Home by Motley Crue, Imagine by John Lennon, and my own original composition, Sunny Day. But the second part of your question is, yes, I would love to compose more songs on piano. And as this year closes and the new year begins, I do still intend on getting a new workspace and setting up my, I have both an actual piano and I have an electric piano, is very high on the list. In fact, I just made a little wish list for myself of more long-term goals. And two of those goals are, one, to continue my learning of German, and two is I want to take piano lessons, official piano lessons, at some point. This might be a year or two away, but it's on my lifetime bucket list. But even without lessons, I can play just a little bit of piano. Yes, I do intend to author more original music based on the piano as opposed to the guitar. So we'll see when it happens. No promises, no time frame. But yes, I do. So thank you for that question, Angela. Let's move on. My buddy Eugenio, buongiorno, my friend, buongiorno. He says, let's go personal. Uh-oh. He says, do you have a girlfriend? Many girlfriends? Groupies? Or something like that? Do you want to be married or have kids one day? This is a good question. I'm going to deflect part of it. As you know, my life is lived quite publicly. Instagram, here on Patreon. You, the members of Patreon, get an insight that I don't give to the outside world. So you know a lot more about me. You know, my mom, my animals, my pets, my personal travel, what I do at home. And I love to share that. I do love to share that. However, there's one thing that I like to keep private. And that's actually my relationships, my interpersonal, my truly personal relationships, whether it's a girlfriend or not. Now, you know, it's not totally secret, you know, when I was living in Germany or who I'm dating. But I do like that. I'm not offended by the question, Eugene, but that's my last thing that I can keep private is who I'm in a relationship with. However, the second part of your question is, do I want to be married and have kids? The answer is yes. I love children. Children love me. I don't know what it is. Pets and kids love me. Maybe it's a musician thing. Maybe it's because I'm so open-minded and friendly, and I love to encourage kids to play music or learn instruments or just be free or do whatever it is that they want. When I play some of my more family-oriented shows, it's become somewhat of a known thing that kids gravitate towards my acoustic show. And I love it. So sometimes I'll be playing an outdoor show. This happened in Philadelphia so many times, where little kids just gravitate to me at a show. I'll see them from across the way, across the street, and they do, you know, I'm singing, and then you see kids playing, they do this. And then they walk right to me, and sometimes they just stand right in front of me. It's so rewarding. Plus, I think it's cool for kids to see music. So I always encourage them to come on, or, you know, sometimes they'll come up and they want to grab my guitar, or they'll grab the mic stand, and you hear the parents say, don't do that. I say, you know, it's okay. You know, it's okay. I don't want them to be afraid of musical instruments. I want them to be, you know, feel confident grabbing it, and of people with long hair or people with tattoos, though that stigma is not as bad these days. You know, I want them to feel that musicians are friendly and music is accessible. You know, being married, sure, I would love that. And I hope one day I am, and I have kids and I'm married. But until then, I'm, you know, practicing. We'll leave it at that. But thanks for your question, Eugene. Let's move on. Eugene has another question. And I actually, usually I don't look at the questions before I do a Q&A. And when I have my interview series, when I interview, you know, members of the Combi Christ touring party or whoever it is, I don't let them see the questions ahead of time. I like it to be live. I like to get a fresh reaction. I took a quick peek at these questions, and I actually noticed this one question from Eugene. It says, excluding this lineup, what have been your favorite Combi Christ lineup from when you joined the band? And if you have the possibility to create your all-time top and favorite Combi Christ lineup, who would be part of the band? It's actually a great question. And it's two parts. Actually, you know, if you remember a post, I've played with like 12 different lineups of Combi Christ. So I've played primarily as a four-piece like we do now. Sometimes it was Joe, Nick, me, and Andy, or Nick, Elliot, me, and Andy. Obviously, it's always me and Andy. It started as a five-piece with me, Andy, Joe, Philip, or Abbey Next and Zemar, which seems so long ago, and it seems such ancient history in the Combi Christ lineage, so to speak, that lineup. But I'll tell you who I would pick. Obviously, me and Andy. Brent would be there. I do miss Brent, and Brent's been, though I played with Abbey Next, a.k.a. Philip, and he was a cool guy, and I really liked Philip a lot. He was a kind guy. He was an amazing performer. His look, as you know, is so outrageous, and he really gave it all on stage, and I always had a lot of respect for him as a performer, and he was a real sweet guy. But Brent is a badass, and it's such a great pro and great bass player, and just a great look, and he's fun and he's funny, and he's a dear friend of mine, and Brent would have to be on stage. I did enjoy when, I will admit, this current lineup, this tour, I think was my favorite tour of any tour I've done in Combi Christ. Just the logistics of it, the interpersonal, that everyone was getting along, the respect shown among the band members. And this is among many great tours, but I really enjoyed this tour a lot. And I like the interplay that Andy and I have right now, and the what I call the weight or the balance of the stage at the moment, with just me and Andy in the front. But I also thought the balance with me and Brent surrounding Andy was very cool, and that we had a great rock and roll thing, though that was when the pendulums swung a little more into the metal zone, and there was some backlash of that, whatever. So Brent, okay, let me go. Me, Andy, and Brent up front. I would have Elliot on keyboards. One, because I love Elliot, and I think he's a great performer. Not to take anything away from Zemar. Zemar's also a great musician. He was also very kind when I joined the band, and helpful and funny. Though that was, God, so long ago. It was a different era of the band. You know, Joe, as you know, has been sober for 3 years, and Zemar's out of the band, and he's sober, and I don't drink whiskey. That era of the band was so wild, and partying so hard, and all drinking whiskey to complete excess. That it just seems like another world. So no disrespect to Zemar, because he was great. But Elliot, I love both personally as a friend and as a musician. I think he brings a lot to the stage. And I thought, actually, when me, Elliot, and Brent were in the band together for that brief stint, I thought that was I thought we had a cool thing. And Nick. I would have Nick on drums. And again, maybe mostly this applies to personal, but that's such a big part of it. As I've said, you're only on stage for 1 hour a day. You have to live together in a small tour bus for the other hours. So how you interact off stage is really important. And I think from a musical perspective, I think Dane's such a great drummer. Joe, I'll repeat my statement. Long tenured, crucial, quintessential member of Combi Christ. Look, we all know this. And I wouldn't be in Combi Christ without Joe. But I wouldn't put him in my all-time lineup. You feel like you have to, but you ask me who I would want. I would put Nick. Actually, I would just Nick. You know what? Dane hasn't earned it yet. So here it is. Here's my final lineup. In the back, Nick on drums, Elliot on keyboards. On the sides, me, Brent, Ashley, and Andy up front. That's my greatest hits Combi Christ lineup. All right. Thanks for that cool question, Eugene. Eugene has another question, hogging it up. He says, about cities. The world is so amazing. Is there a particular city that you love on top of others, and one that you like less than others? Well, I love so many cities. This is a difficult question, because I love to travel, and I also love to, experience different cultures, food, tradition, language, fashion, architecture, all these things. So, with the world being so interesting, I get to see so much. Let's be honest. I was in 24 countries. And even though I don't go sightseeing in every one, and I don't get a day off in every one, this tour, I really nailed my days off. And just of these last tour, like I had a day off in Bristol, UK, Emma's hometown. It was lovely. My second time there, and I have a couple spots. I have a a brunch spot that Emma and I discovered that just was wonderful, and I visited again, and it was just as delicious. And there's some neat stuff in Bristol. I had a day off in Bruges. Oh my God, what a city! What a city! It's like a mini Prague. I always say Prague is perhaps, maybe the coolest city in the world. I mean, this is, again, not a secret. It's an amazing place. You don't need a guidebook for Prague. You know what? You just walk and it's cool. But Bruges had that. I had a day off in Vienna, and I loved Vienna. So much to do, so much to see. And then I had a day off in Malta, and I was blown away by Malta. So this is just, in the last, 6 weeks, I've seen so much. Of course, I love Berlin. Berlin is, the most artistic city in Europe, perhaps the world. New York had been a long-time favorite, but it's changed a little bit. Berlin, for me, is better than New York. It's more interesting. It's more international. Has so much to do with a decent price. I love Philadelphia. Moscow is a great place. I love Moscow so much. I could go on and on. So there's no favorite. I love so much. I'm just lucky to see them. Is there one I like less than the others? There is, but I can't think of one right now. I don't know, man. That's a hard one. That's a hard one. Who I don't like. I'm a pretty happy guy. So, but thank you for that question, Eugene. Let's move on. Julia in Franken. Servus, Julia. She says, what did I miss most when I'm on tour? Well, this is pretty easy. I miss having a refrigerator with my own food and being able to cook healthy food for myself. This is what I miss more than anything. This tour, I actually ate pretty well. I ate like a king. Who am I kidding? I ate so much great food on this tour. But the daily food, it's a little difficult to prepare the daily food, to have the type of coffee I like, to have fresh fruit, or the ability to, like, organic. I try to eat organic when I'm home. It's a small thing, work on my health, that I can't always find this. That's something I miss a lot. Of course, I miss my family. I miss interacting with my family. I miss sleeping in my own bed. Here's an odd one. I miss the variety of a wardrobe. So, being on tour, I've mastered the art of wearing one outfit for 6 weeks. I have I have 3 of the exact same pair of pants, so I look the same in every city. I look the same on stage, but I can still have clean clothes. But you can only take so much on tour with you, and particularly lately, I like having fun with fashion. The white look, my new soccer look, my new European football look. That's something I miss. Wearing the same thing gets boring every day. Wearing the same shirts or doing laundry and then putting them back on a week later gets super boring. So that's something. What food did I cook for myself when I first get back home from tour? I actually haven't cooked anything yet because my kitchen is also under construction. I did get myself my favorite cereal and milk. I got myself some organic coconut milk, though I like almond milk and oat milk also. But I tried, they only had organic coconut milk at the grocery store across the street, and I got my organic cereal. So I did have a delicious bowl of cereal. In fact, I already have plans. When this is over, I'm going to have another bowl of cereal. And I love it. And so that's the first thing I'm going to cook. But I also do get certain foods. If you saw my post, Terry Matlin and I took him to one of my favorite hometown restaurants, one of my childhood places that my dad and I go, my grandmom and I go, my grandfather and I used to go, Nick and Joe's Pizza. So I always go to Nick and Joe's. I always go to Franco's. I always, I have my spots in Philly that are my favorites. In fact, later tonight, I'm having a Rune Army meetup with Lily and Mama D, Rune Army Moms Club, and the 3 of us are going to meet at another favorite spot of mine here in the Northeast, Santucci's. But they have so much good food. My roommate and I love Santucci's pizza, I promised I'm not getting pizza tonight, so my roommate and I can enjoy our favorite Santucci's pizza later in the week. So this is one of the things. But that's a great question. Thank you, Yulia. She also asked, which show did I enjoy the most on this tour so far? There was a lot of great shows. And Andy and I both had such a great time. The morale was high in Europe in particular. And I would say some of the cities, just because it's on the top of my mind, the German cities, we play Germany all the time. A couple of them, Munich is always great. And that was a great show. And I had a lot of friends there, which always feels great to see my friends in the audience. And we had a great after party at the tour bus, which is also great. But some of the other cities, namely Nuremberg, sometimes lives in the shadow of Munich. And Frankfurt is a place where we always have good shows, really good shows, but I don't know if we've ever had a great show. And this tour, this the end of this tour, Nuremberg was awesome. It was really raging. We had a great crowd, a rabid crowd. And Frankfurt was great. Like, it felt like the best crowd we've ever had in Frankfurt and the best crowd we've ever had in Nuremberg. And that happened a number of places. Also happened in Eastern Europe. Tallinn, Estonia was awesome this time. You were there. Yelena, you were there. That was a great show, as was Riga, Latvia. That was a really special show. But if I had to narrow it down, of course, Mera Luna has an unfair advantage because I'm playing to 25,000 people, and this is awesome. Despite that small technical difficulty I had during one song, as Eugene pointed out, that definitely did not feel good. But overall, it's pretty cool to play to that many people. But perhaps Hellfest, that was just magic. Hellfest was a pretty amazing show. For me, I won't say I was scared, but it was a heavy festival, a lot of metal. And France, while I've played there many times, isn't our number one market. And we played at a time slot and a place that I didn't know how it was going to go. At a festival, people don't always show up when you're in a side tent. You're on the main stage, of course. Mera Luna, everybody's there. There's only 2 stages, and everybody's in front of it. So it's easy to know that you're going to play it to a huge crowd. Hellfest, we weren't on the main stage. We weren't on the second stage. We were, in the tent. So we don't truly know. 30 minutes before we played, when we're setting up, there was nobody in there. There was 100 people. I walked out. I saw May. I saw some friends from Germany. But man, fast forward 30 minutes when we walked out. Wow, what a show, man. That was one I'll never forget. I remember most of them, but that was a magic one. Plus, it was only the second time we played this Black Sabbath piece of One Fire. And as I said before, you could probably see it in the video. There was crazy mosh pits, and the video doesn't even. I feel like it didn't show enough of the crowd, like enough of showing Combi Christ. Well, you know what we look like. The crowd was incredible. It was incredible. May was there, and she can vouch for me. What a crowd! The feeling in that tent. I just got goosebumps thinking about it. The feeling in that tent was electric, unbelievable. That, I have to say that was my favorite show of the tour. Because also, I rode that high for a week. That was on Saturday, and it was a week later, and I still had this feeling in my chest, like, I don't care what happens tonight, I feel great. Combi Christ has reached a new level for me at this Hellfest show, that this lineup, the Eric, Andy, Will, Dane, had accomplished something that I don't think, frankly, any previous lineup had ever accomplished. That's a tall order because Combi Christ has been around for a long time. But I'll tell you, that was maybe my favorite show we've ever played. And, Andy says the same thing, and that's not just because, it's the current lineup, and so Hellfest was pretty special, not to take away from any of the other shows, because they're all meaningful to me. But, yeah, that was it. So thank you for that question. Yulia. She also asked, tell us a funny story. Man, they're not they're not rated properly. They don't have the proper rating for this family environment, all the funniest stories. You know what? Let me come back to that one, Yulia, since it was a three-part question. I'll think of something funny coming up. But thank you for your great questions. We have a question. Actually, Emma asked a question on behalf of Leia. She said, Leia would like to know if the Pinheads will ever make an appearance in Germany. I wish, but I'll be honest, probably not. The Pinheads is a just for fun band, and it's really not about making money. And to come to Europe really requires making, at minimum, enough money, hopefully to break even or not lose too much. But I would say it's highly unlikely, sadly enough, that the Pinheads come to Germany. However, I would say it's very likely that I perform again with the Raffits. So it's similar to the Pinheads. So we'll see. I won't say no, but I got to be honest, I doubt it. Okay, let's move on. Tiffany. Tiffany Rhymes. Are you watching, Tiffany? Maybe not, but she has a question. You mentioned you did some acting a while ago. Would really like to know more about that. I know you're busy, but can you imagine to do more acting one day? And what kind of movies or TV shows would you like to be in? That's a great question. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to keep it a surprise, but there is some acting I did that I'm going to post about in the coming days. Two-part question about two roles that I had that were funny. Now, they're very minor, so just keep this in mind. I don't want to hype this up too much. And actually, I'll give you... I played the role of a musician, so it's not this crazy. But to answer your question, yes, I would love to try acting, though I also have so much respect for actors. It's really quite a craft that requires some work. I think it requires a little bit of natural ability. So for me, I'm not sure if I would be a dramatic actor, but I do think I could be a game show host. This I would like. Some sort of, or just any, I feel like I could be an interviewer. I am an interviewer. I would be myself on television. This is what I would like to do. This right here, this is not unlike hosting a TV show. I could do it, Maybe I could be the new host of Chopped. Chef Christie, you've been chopped. The new Ted Allen. He's actually my game show idol, Ted Allen. I mean, of course, Wink Martindale. This is really probably only the Americans watching will appreciate this, but Wink Martindale, what a cool name. Alex Trebek, the intellectual game show host. But, yeah, acting my own biopic. Who would play Eric 13 in the biopic? Would it be about me? Would it be about the sex slaves? Would it be about Combi Christ? What actor? I would think maybe Alexander Skarsgård would be a great Eric 13. Or perhaps, you don't have to look like, who would I like? What about George Clooney? I would like George Clooney to play Eric 13 in my biopic. Either him or Dolph Lundgren. I feel like Dolph Lundgren would be a great. Or Tom Cruise, yes, you know what? His religion aside, I think Tom Cruise would be perfect. Johnny Depp, he might have to clean up his act a little bit, but Johnny Depp would be good. Ryan Gosling, no. Though, you know what? Wait. I spoke prematurely. I did enjoy his work in the Blade Runner, the new Blade Runner movie. But, yeah, Tom Cruise, I'm down with Tom. What about Alexander Skarsgård? No? Dolph Lundgren? A couple Swedish guys? I don't look Swedish enough? I couldn't look any less Swedish or like those two giant Swedish guys, but I like both of them. Your second question was, what is the banana movement? The banana phone movement, and how did it start? It's just magic. The banana phone movement is nothing more than a little bit of fun. It's that simple. Just having a little fun, Just having a little fun. I actually attempted to retire the banana phone movement. Mara Luna was going to be the final banana phone. But you know what? It just doesn't want to die. So who knows? Thank you for your question, Tiffany. Let's move on to May. May has a question. In the tour bus, who washes the dishes and who never does? I'll tell you who always doesn't. Greg. Greg makes himself a cup of tea every morning. And you know what? Every day, I see an empty cup of tea with a tea bag somewhere on the bus. It drives me crazy. I'm like, Greg, can you pick this up? Stop leaving your mugs around. I don't do it. Come on, man. You're the only one drinking tea. It's you. Stop. I'm a clean freak. Andy always leaves his empty beer bottles around. It's so easy. You go backstage, you see where Andy's sitting, and you see a pile of empty beer cans or beer bottles. There's a trash can or a beer thing 2 feet away. 2 feet away is the empty case. Why can't you put your beer back in the case? Put it in the trash can, man. Drives me nuts. Drives me nuts. I won't even get into how Joe used to be. He's out of the band. He now gets a pass. But I'm actually very clean. Brent was the clean freak. So to answer your question, Brent was the ultimate clean freak. Brent would wake up, or actually Brent wouldn't go to bed. And the room, we'd have a party every night on the tour bus. We were a little wilder in those days. And he'd wake up in the morning and the place would be fucking spotless. Brent. And that's one thing I liked about Brent in the band was that he was so clean. It was always great having Brent around because you knew the place would be clean. So that answers your question. Okay, let's move on. May has another question. I'm curious to know about Combi Christ's hospitality rider. What's the most special or unusual request and who is it coming from? Well, we simplified it this tour. I'd say it's actually pretty standard. We get a couple cases of beer, and we usually specify Corona. It used to be PBR. Corona, the reason we pick Corona is because it's like an easy beer that you can get that's good. So we usually say no Beck's. We don't want any Beck's beer because Beck's sucks. Unless it's the blue. Like Beck's Blue, which Emma knows is quite good, is actually pretty good. But regular Beck's, it's the worst. So we usually ask for Corona, but we actually ask for local beer. So even regardless of what you ask for, you always get local beer. So we ask for beer, then we ask for like a 12-pack of an IPA, which is for Andy. I always put Augustiner on there just in case. I actually asked in the U.S. for the non-alcoholic beer, but I took it off for Europe, or sometimes we get it, sometimes we don't. We get 1 bottle of Jack Daniels, which is shared by Will and Dane mostly. I think Chris and Andy dip into it. We get a bottle of vodka. I don't know. I guess that's for Elliot. So everybody has their own little thing. And a bottle of wine for Dane, though it's usually me, Dane, and Chris sharing wine. But I'm lucky I get gifted a lot of wine from my lovely French friends and my Italian friends. Eugene brought some amazing wine. So while I may drink the backstage wine, I tend to only drink wine when it's brought by a friend. And luckily, it happens a fair amount. So that's the alcohol. So there's all the alcohol. So there's beer, regular beer, IPA for Andy, 1 bottle of vodka, 1 bottle of Jack Daniels, 1 bottle of wine. So that's the alcohol. Then we get a case of Coke Zero and a case of regular Coke. And this is actually really funny that some people, like I hate regular Coke and some people, but it's really the whiskey drinkers drink all the Coke. But we had so much extra Coke Zero on this tour that it became this like, not even a joke. People would get mad. They were like, no more Coke Zero on the rider. We have too much on the bus. There's already 2 cases stacked up. Who's not drinking it? Take it off the rider. I'm like, whoa. I like Coke Zero. I can't help it if they bring too much. And then what happens is every time, and of course, couple cases of water, 4 cases of water. But here's what happens. We have so many drinks on the bus. We got backup cases of beer, bottles of whiskey. You walk on, it's crazy how much stuff we have on this bus sometimes. Only in Europe, not in America. Only in Europe. But then what happens is there's a day off, and sure enough, by the end of the day off, everything is wiped out. You can't find a bottle of water. It's so annoying that there's no water anywhere. In fact, the only thing left is whatever is there's Beck's. That's the only thing left on the bus. There'll be 6 warm Beck's beers left, and there's nothing to drink. There'll be all the Coke Zero's gone, all the Coke's gone, all the water's gone, all the good beer is gone. There'll be some weird, no offense, if you brought this, the peach Coke Zero, while a nice novelty, I don't like it. Or there'll be some other shit in the fucking refrigerator that nobody wants to drink. So it's funny. So everybody complains about how much space is taken up by all these drinks, yet, sure enough, it all gets drank. And one big party. So, for example, in Munich, I had a massive party on the tour bus after the show, and all the beer got wiped out, which was great. It's such a pleasure to share the drinks with my friends and stuff like that. So, all right, so that's that. I guess we don't really ask for food. What we ask for is protein bars. I put on the rider a handful of bananas and apples, organic if you can. So I asked them to please give me some organic fruit. So every day, that's really how the banana phone movement started, to go back to an earlier question, is every day I ask for bananas, because I like to eat a banana in the morning, and I like to eat an apple, organic if possible. And then we actually don't have any other food on the rider because we get food automatically in Europe. In America, we actually took all the food off the rider, and we just take the money. So each person gets a daily allowance of money that they can buy whatever food they want. We do ask for one other interesting thing on the rider, and we rarely get it in America. I would say once or twice out of the 40 shows. In Europe, a little more frequently, maybe 10 out of the 40 shows, we ask for postcards from the local city and stamps. And it's always cool when you see it. For example, in Poznan, Poland, and also in Brasov, Romania. You come backstage, and there it is. And there's your bottle of whiskey, and there's a case of beer, and there's my bananas, and then next to it is a small pile of postcards, and you see some of the local stamps. It's always cool. I think that's a nice touch. So maybe that's the one strange thing. Now there's a story, an old story. Maybe, Julia, this can count as my funny story. And May, this is your question for who has an odd request. You may have heard this story, but in Russia, I made a funny addition to the rider. So if you've ever heard the story of David Lee Roth, the singer of Van Halen, always writes at the bottom of his rider, "No green M&Ms." This is a famous rock and roll story. I won't get into it, but he always writes this. It's known around the world. In his books, everybody knows this. So I always do this as an homage to David Lee Roth. I always write "No green M&Ms" backstage. It's a joke. I also put, for our Russian tour, I said one Team Russia hockey jersey. Now, I actually put of Pavel Bure, who is a famous Russian hockey star from the 90s, or Sergei Fedorov, also from the 90s, early 2000s. He was my favorite Russian hockey player. So I'm backstage in St. Petersburg. Last show, in fact, it's right here. Hold on. You've probably seen it. We're backstage, and the promoter comes in. And in Russia, they always want to go big. They always want to show you Russia strong. America is cool, but Russia is so great. And they always go overboard, which is cool. They take great care of us. I love Russia. I said one jersey. So we're backstage, and here's, okay, we bring beer. Here is beer for Combi-Christ. And then they say, Eric, we have surprise. And they give me a Team Russia hockey jersey. And I'm like, you realize that was a joke. In fact, I'm sitting next to my closet. I will show you. So I'm backstage, and they present me, and this isn't some cheap imitation, no pun intended. This is the actual replica jersey of Team Russia with Eric 13 on the back. I know a bunch of you have already seen it. But wow, it was awesome. It was so cool. I couldn't believe they did that. These promoters were so nice. They're still my friends. Boris. I could be Boris. My Bulgarian princess loves my Russian accent. But that was really cool. So that's the funny thing on the rider. And yes, I did play it at the show in Moscow. And for the encore, I put it on and walked out, and the crowd went crazy. In fact, it was me and Brent backstage, and Brent was like, "You're not putting that thing on." I said, "Yes, I am. Watch this." And I walked out, and I put it on like this, and the crowd went nuts. The crowd went fucking nuts. Excuse my language. In fact, I'm putting it on right now. Yeah. So you'll see some pictures of me if you go back last tour of Russia. I wore this shirt, so maybe that's the oddest request, but oh man, I love it. In the winter, I like to wear this on a, snowy day when I'm laying around the house, or perhaps when I'm watching the Olympics. This was a cool thing from the Hospitality Rider. So thanks for that question, May. Let's see. During this tour, May has another question. What was the best and worst welcome you received in the backstage? That's a good question. I would say usually it's always pretty nice. People in Europe are quite hospitable. Speaking of Bulgaria, they were so cool. The tour bus hadn't arrived. I went separately. I went separately to Bulgaria, and they were just they're just nice. They're just kind. Typically, if the promoter or the club was a former musician or touring musician, maybe they were a tour manager, somebody who has been on tour makes the best backstage because they know what it's like to be a musician. It takes the smallest kindness goes a long way. Please have some coffee made. Please put some sandwiches out. Don't wait till we get there to go to the store. You get off the bus, whether you've ridden 2 hours or 10 hours, you know what? You just want to have a snack. You know what? You want some bottled water. So it's nice. But to answer your question, usually, no offense, Eugene, Italy is the worst. They're never prepared. And I don't want to make a broad statement, but, we'll show, okay, load-in's at 3 o'clock, and the tour bus pulls up at 3 o'clock sometimes a day. They're not even there, let alone prepared. They're not even there. So, however, I will say this last show in Milano was not like that. They were totally professional, totally prepared, made us some amazing pasta. You may remember my photo of that. This time in Italy was great. They were professional, they were cool, everything like that. Let's see, Munich, yeah. Munich is the opposite. Backstage Munich is a club that you walk up and, hey, I woke up, I walked into catering, and there was schnitzel in the breakfast buffet. I mean, they won my heart. But I've already known this about Munich. Munich, they had great beer. They stocked my backstage with Augustiner. They had schnitzel in the catering. There was great parking. They don't care if your friends are backstage. Some clubs, they're so militant, like this no backstage pass, they must come, or no, you can't bring girls backstage, or the show ends and they throw everybody out. Not Munich. Germany does one thing great, and it lets people be social openly. You can drink beer outside. It's not about drinking on the street. It's just about being responsible drinkers. And if you have some friends backstage, they don't care. You know what? As long as they're not idiots, of course, they'll get kicked out. But this is one thing I really like about Munich. So maybe Munich, perhaps, is one of the best. But Italy broke the stereotype this time. So that's your question, May. Uh-oh, we've only got 2 minutes left, and we got so many questions. I feel like we have to do a second hour. We're doing a second hour. So we have 1 minute and 45 seconds left. But I got a whole bunch of questions. Actually, not a whole bunch of questions, but a handful of questions that are important that I think we should answer. So I'm going to wrap up this section. I'll tell you what, I'm going to take a 1 minute break. Should I make another cup of coffee? Yes. I'm going to take a 1 minute break. I'm going to make a cup of coffee. We're going to go into our second hour. I'm also, of course, the replay will stay live. And hopefully, our dear friend Emma always helps me and records them. I will post this on the Patreon page for replay. Both the first hour and the second hour will be available actually on private Eric 13 YouTube channel. So let's hang up right now. Let's all take 2 minutes. It's exactly 3 p.m. right now. At 3:05, I'm going to press record. Let's begin the second hour. I would love for you to join me for the second hour. If you have to go, I of course understand, but I'd love to tell you some more stories about this last tour. So it's great to see everybody, and let's reconvene in 5 minutes. Tschüss.